Mystical City of God, translated from the original Spanish by Michael Kress, read by the translator. Book 1, Chapter 22. How St. Anne fulfilled the law of Moses after giving birth, and how the child Mary lived in her early years. According to the law in Leviticus 12, verses 5 to 6, when a woman gave birth to a daughter, she was to be considered ritually unclean for 2 weeks and remain in a period of purification for 66 days, twice the duration required for a male child. Once her purification was complete, she was to bring a 1-year-old lamb for a burnt offering and a turtle dove or pigeon as a sin offering to the entrance of the tabernacle, where the priest would present it before the Lord and pray for her purification. The birth of the most blessed Anne was as pure and immaculate as the divine child she bore, for it was from the daughter that the mother received her purity. Though St. Anne had no need of purification, she humbly fulfilled the law in every detail, allowing herself to be seen as ritually impure in the eyes of others, even though she was exempt from the burdens that the law required purification from. After the 66 days of purification, St. Anne went to the temple, her soul inflamed with divine love, carrying in her arms her holy daughter. Accompanied by innumerable angels, she approached the entrance of the tabernacle and spoke with the high priest, who at that time was the holy Simeon, because he remained in the temple for many years. It was granted to him that he would witness the presentation of the child Mary each time she was brought to the temple. Yet, although he did not fully recognize her dignity, he always felt within himself a mysterious spiritual movement, sensing that this child was great in the eyes of God. St. Anne offered the lamb and the turtle dove, along with the other prescribed offerings, and with humble tears, she asked the priest to pray for her and her daughter, that if they had any guilt, the Lord would forgive them. But God had no sins to forgive, for his grace overflowed abundantly in both mother and daughter. What he could do, however, was reward their humility, for despite their holiness, they humbled themselves as if they were sinners. The high priest accepted the offering and was suddenly inflamed with an extraordinary joy, though he did not fully understand its cause. Within himself he asked, "What is this wonder I feel? Could these women be related to the Messiah who is to come?" Remaining in this state of awe and spiritual joy, he showed great kindness to them. St. Anne then entered the temple, carrying her holy daughter in her arms, and with deep devotion and tears, she offered her to the Lord, knowing she alone in the world understood the treasure entrusted to her. At that moment, St. Anne renewed her vow, which she had previously made, to dedicate her firstborn to the temple when she reached the appropriate age. As she renewed this offering, she was filled with a new grace and illumination from the Most High, and felt a voice in her heart, instructing her to fulfill the vow and bring the child to the temple when she turned 3 years old. This divine inspiration was the echo of the prayer of the Holy Queen herself, for as she entered the temple, the young Mary beheld with her own eyes the majesty and greatness of the Lord and the glory of his worship. This had a profound effect on her spirit, and she longed to prostrate herself in adoration and kiss the ground of the temple in reverence. Since her small body could not yet express outwardly what her soul burned to do, she fulfilled it inwardly, adoring and blessing God with a love more profound than any pure creature before or after her. Speaking within her heart to the Lord, she prayed, "Most high and incomprehensible God, my King and Lord, worthy of all glory, praise, and reverence, I, though but humble dust, yet your creation, adore you in this holy place, your temple. I exalt and glorify you for your infinite being and perfections, and I give you thanks as far as my smallness allows for your divine favor in granting me the grace to see this sacred house of prayer, where your prophets and my ancient fathers have praised and blessed you, and where your boundless mercy has worked such great wonders and mysteries. Receive me, Lord, so that I may serve you here when it is your holy will." The one who was the Queen of the universe made this humble offering as the handmaid of the Lord, and as a sign that the Most High accepted it, a brilliant light descended from heaven, visibly illuminating both the child and her mother, filling them with new splendors of grace. St. Anne again understood that she was to present her daughter to the temple when she reached the age of 3, for the pleasure that the Lord would take in this offering could not be delayed any longer, nor could the intense longing of the divine child to be given to the service of God wait any further. The guardian angels, along with countless other heavenly spirits who attended this sacred moment, sang sweet hymns of praise to the Creator of these wonders. However, of all the supernatural events that occurred, only Saint Anne and her holy daughter were fully aware, each experiencing what was either spiritual or sensible, according to their capacity. Only the holy Simeon, the priest, perceived something of the visible light. With this, Saint Anne returned home, enriched not only by her heavenly treasure, the infant Mary, but also by new graces from the Most High. Meanwhile, the ancient serpent watched with restless suspicion, but God concealed from him what he was not meant to know, and allowed him to perceive only what was necessary. Thus, in his own attempts to oppose God's designs, he unknowingly served as an instrument in their fulfillment. The devil made many conjectures about the extraordinary holiness he sensed in mother and child. But when he saw that they offered sacrifices at the temple and submitted themselves to the law as if they were sinners, requesting that the priest pray for their forgiveness, he was deceived and pacified in his fury. He assumed that this mother and daughter were no different from other women, even if they were holier than most. The sovereign child was treated like any other infant of her age. She ate the common food, though in very small amounts, and slept as other children did, though her soul was never burdened by sleep. Unlike other infants, she never cried out of annoyance, but was always gentle and serene. Yet, to conceal the miracle of her perfection, she wept and sighed often, not for herself, but for the sins of the world, pleading for its redemption, and longing for the coming of the Savior. Her expression was always serene, filled with heavenly majesty, though never childish or foolish. At times, she accepted small displays of affection, but only from her mother, and even then, with great moderation. When others tried to play with her, she received them with kindness, but with an extraordinary dignity, instinctively tempering their imperfect gestures with her virtue and wisdom. Her prudent mother, Saint Anne, cared for her with incomparable devotion, tenderness, and love. Her father, Saint Joachim, also loved her deeply, though at that time he was still unaware of the great mystery surrounding her. Mary, however, showed him special affection, recognizing him as her father and a man beloved by God. Even though she allowed her father to show more affection than others, God had already placed a deep reverence and modesty in his heart, as well as in everyone around her. From the beginning, God protected his chosen mother from anything inappropriate, ensuring that even the pure affection of her father was always measured and tempered with profound respect. In all things the infant queen was gracious, perfect, and admirable. Though she passed through infancy according to the natural laws of human development, grace was never hindered in her. Even when she slept, she did not cease her interior acts of love, nor was her contemplation ever interrupted. If this privilege has been granted to other souls whom the divine power has chosen to favor, how much more must it have been granted to her whom God predestined to be his own mother and queen of all creation? God spoke to Samuel in his sleep, 1 Samuel 3 verse 4, and granted prophetic dreams to others, Genesis 37 verses 5 and 9. Thus, it is not difficult for divine power to illuminate the intellect while the senses rest in natural sleep or are suspended in ecstatic rapture. Since, in both states, the external senses are inactive, the soul remains open to divine communication. This was a perpetual law for the Queen of Heaven from her conception to the present moment and for all eternity. Her state as a pilgrim on earth was never marked by intervals of separation from grace, as happens with other creatures. Whenever she was alone or resting, she would converse with the angels about the divine mysteries, offering praises to the Most High. She was also granted divine visions and heavenly communications. Because her interactions with angels were so frequent, the next chapter will describe in greater detail how they manifested themselves to her and reveal more about their sublime nature. Queen and Lady of Heaven, if, as a merciful mother and my teacher, you listen to my ignorance without offense, I would ask your majesty to resolve some doubts that have arisen in my heart. Did you, in your infancy, experience hunger and other natural needs as other children do? And if so, how did you ask for nourishment, since your patience was so admirable, while other children cry as their only form of communication? Furthermore, was it burdensome for you to be wrapped in swaddling clothes, to be fed, or to endure the limitations of infancy, since other children lack reason, and are unaware of these things, yet nothing was hidden from you? It seems almost impossible to me that there was not either excess or lack in the way you were cared for. Your infancy required the common necessities of nature, yet your wisdom and prudence demanded balance and dignity. You did not ask for food as a crying infant, nor did you speak as an adult. No one knew your thoughts, and you were not treated according to the reasoning you already possessed. Even your holy mother, Anne, did not fully understand everything about you, nor could she always discern the right timing and manner to serve you perfectly. All of this fills me with wonder and desire to understand the mysteries hidden in these things. The Queen of Heaven responded with kindness and benevolence. My daughter, I will answer your wonderings with gentleness. 'Tis true that I possessed grace and perfect use of reason from the first moment of my conception, as I have often shown you. Yet I still passed through the natural stages of infancy, and I was raised according to the ordinary customs of all children. I felt hunger, thirst, sleep, and physical discomfort, and as a daughter of Adam I was subject to these human experiences. However, it was just and fitting that I imitate my most holy Son, who chose to endure these same human limitations, not because he needed to, but so that he might merit for others and serve as a model for all mortals who would follow him. Since I was governed by divine grace, I ate and slept with perfect moderation, taking less than others, and only that which was necessary for the growth and preservation of life and health. For excess in these things is not only contrary to virtue, but also harmful to nature itself, which is weakened and corrupted by indulgence. Because my constitution and spiritual refinement were so delicate, I was more sensitive to hunger and thirst than other children, and it was more dangerous for me to go without nourishment. Yet, if food was delayed or if too much was given, I remained patient, until at the proper time, with a modest and appropriate gesture, I indicated my need. The lack of sleep was less painful for me, since whenever I was alone, I could remain in contemplation, gazing upon divine mysteries, and conversing with the angels. Being wrapped in swaddling clothes, bound and confined, did not cause me great sorrow. Rather, it brought me immense joy, for I already knew that the incarnate Word would suffer a most ignominious death, and would be bound and mocked. When I was alone, even in that tender age, I placed myself in the form of a cross, praying in imitation of him, for I knew that my beloved would die upon it, though at the time I did not yet know that the crucified one would be my own son in all the hardships I endured after my birth. I was always at peace and joyful, for I never lost sight of a truth that I now wish you to hold inviolable and permanent in your heart. We must weigh all things in our hearts and minds according to divine truth, assigning to each thing its proper value and weight. This error and blindness ensnares most of the children of Adam, and I do not want you, my daughter, to fall into the same deception. As soon as I was born into the world and beheld the light, I became aware of the elements, the influences of the stars and planets, the earth that sustained me, the food that nourished me, and all the other natural causes of life. I gave thanks to the author of all things, recognizing his works as a gracious gift rather than something he owed me. Thus, whenever I lacked anything necessary, rather than being disturbed, I rejoiced, acknowledging that God was treating me justly, for all I had received was purely from his grace, not my merit, and he would be just in withholding it. Now tell me, my child, if I, who had been given all graces in abundance, recognize this truth so clearly, why do mortals become so senseless? When they lack something they desire, they become angry, disturbed, and even turn against one another, sometimes even raging against God, as though he had wronged them. Let them ask themselves, what treasures did they possess before they were given life? What service did they render to the Creator before he granted them existence? If nothingness could merit nothing, and if they did not deserve the life they received, then by what right do they now demand continued sustenance, as though it were owed to them, God did not create humanity for his own benefit, but rather for the infinite good of the creature itself. If, in receiving existence, they have already contracted an infinite debt to God, a debt they can never repay, then what claim can they make now, as though they were entitled to all the goods of the earth? Where is their contract or guarantee that they must lack nothing? If the first gift of life was a grace freely given, then the continuation of that life is also a grace, not a right. So how can man, with such impatience, demand the next gift, as if the first did not already obligate him to endless gratitude? And if, despite this, the infinite goodness of the Creator still provides him generously with what he needs, why does he become troubled when he lacks what is unnecessary? Oh, my daughter, what an abominable disorder this is! What blindness could be more shameful than this? The gifts that God freely bestows, men do not acknowledge nor repay with gratitude. Yet for the things God justly withholds, and often in his great mercy, they become restless, arrogant, and even seek illicit means to obtain them, plunging themselves into ruin in their vain pursuits. For a single sin, a man loses the friendship of God and, along with it, the harmony of creation itself. If the Lord did not restrain the natural order, all creatures would turn against the sinner, refusing to serve him in his rebellion against his Creator. The heavens would withhold their light and influences. The fire would deny him its warmth. The air would refuse him breath. All other creatures would, in their own way, turn against him in vengeance. For justice demands that all things serve only those who serve their Creator. Thus, when the earth withholds its fruits, when the elements bring hardship, and when all of nature seems to rebel, let man humble himself before his God. Let him not heap up wrath against himself, Romans 2 verse 5, for the day of judgment, when God will hold him accountable for his ingratitude and foolishness. And you, my beloved daughter, flee from such monstrous ingratitude. Recognize in humility that you have received life and all things purely from grace, and that, even without your merit, the author of life continues to sustain you by his mercy. Every day you receive abundantly, yet you pay back so little, and so, while God's generosity increases toward you, your debt also grows. I desire that you meditate on this truth continuously, so that it awakens and moves you to ever greater acts of virtue. If irrational creatures fail you, rejoice in the Lord, and give thanks to him and bless them for obeying their Creator's will. If your fellow men persecute you, love them with all your heart, and esteem them as instruments of divine justice, for in them God is allowing you to be purified, so that you might offer some reparation for your faults. Embrace suffering, adversity, and tribulation, for not only do you deserve them for your sins, but they are also the adornment of your soul, precious jewels of your divine spouse. This shall be the answer to your question, and from it, I wish to give you the doctrine that I have promised throughout these chapters. Pay close attention, my daughter, to the great diligence my holy mother, Saint Anne, displayed in fulfilling the precepts of the Lord's law. This careful obedience was highly pleasing to His Majesty. You must imitate her in this, keeping violably all the commandments of your rule and constitutions. God rewards this faithfulness with great generosity, but He considers negligence in these matters a grave offense. I was conceived without sin, and thus I had no need to be purified by a priest. My mother, being very holy, had no need of purification either. Yet we both submitted humbly to the law, and for this we merited great increases in virtue and grace. To despise just and well-ordered laws, or to dispense with them carelessly, is to lose the true worship and fear of God, leading to the disorder and collapse of human governance. Guard yourself against easily granting dispensations, either for yourself or for others, in the obligations of your religious life. If illness or a just cause allows for an exception, let it be done with prudence, under the counsel of your confessor, and let your actions be justifiable before God and men, approved by obedience. If you find yourself weary or physically weakened, do not immediately lessen your rigor, for God will give you strength according to your faith. Never excuse yourself from your duties for the sake of other occupations. What is lesser must serve what is greater, and created things must serve their Creator. And as one who holds authority, you will have even less excuse, for in the observance of the laws, You must be the first to set the example. For yourself there must never be a human reason to dispense with obedience, though you may at times allow exceptions for your sisters and subordinates when needed. Take heed, my beloved daughter, I desire only what is best and most perfect for you. For this reason, such rigor is necessary, because faithful observance of the commandments is a debt owed to both God and men. Let no one believe that it is enough to fulfill their obligations to God alone, while neglecting their duty toward their neighbors, who require the witness of a good example and should never be given cause for true scandal. O Queen and Lady of all creation, how I long to attain the purity and virtue of the heavenly spirits, so that this burdensome flesh which weighs down the soul, Wis 9:15, would no longer hinder me from swiftly fulfilling your heavenly teaching. I am heavy and sluggish, even to myself, Job 7 verse 20, but through your intercession and the favor of divine grace, I will strive to obey your will and the most holy will of God, with promptness and fervor of heart. May I never lack your intercession and protection, nor the guidance of your holy and exalted doctrine.